Hi again. Welcome back to the Copycat Stitch podcast. I'm Bailey. It's been a while. I have a lot of projects to talk about, but also I haven't really been knitting as much as normal. It's just because it's been a while. Annie's already locked in. She heard me say hello and welcome back to the Copycat Stitch podcast. And she's coming in. She's sitting staring at my projects right now. She has not jumped up on my lap yet, but we'll see what happens. So I do actually have a lot to talk about, but it's been a while since the last one. We went on vacation. It was a shorter vacation. We went to Florida for a little less than a week. And so I have a couple projects that I cast on specifically to have travel whips. I'm not sour on those actually. I'm kind of just in general, like not enjoying a lot of the projects that I have going. I think my knitting mojo is just waned again, and I'm living with it. A big part of that, I would guess, is I talked a little bit last time about trying not to knit a bunch of summer projects that I won't wear, because I've had a habit in the past of really diving headlong into spring and summer knitting and then making a bunch of like tank tops or summer tops or t-shirts or whatever that I just never really wear, and it's a problem. And because I'm actively trying not to do that and actively only trying to cast on projects that I actually want to wear and not just things that I happen to have the yarn quantity for, I'm just kind of down on it. I'm not like super enjoying the knitting that's not particularly seasonal. I've been working on some projects that are for warmer garments that I won't be able to use in the warmer seasons, and I'm just not super driven. I do have some acquisitions to show at the end, and one of those I'm finding very inspiring, so hopefully I will cast that on soon, and that will kind of remedy that issue that I'm having, but maybe not. And maybe this summer I just need to focus less on knitting. While I can work on my knitting, I can continue to work on the sort of fall things that I know I'm going to want to make. I think maybe I need to fall back on other crafts. I have been thinking about sewing a lot. A lot of sewing content has been coming across my YouTube feed, and I've been feeling very inspired by a couple channels that do a lot of sewing. They're just like fun, stylish people that are younger than me that I liked, a little younger. They're not like teenagers, but they are younger than me, and I find their approach to style very inspiring. Even though I wouldn't wear a lot of the things that they personally wear, I do love to watch their content, and it has made me think about the fabric stash I have and the big pattern stash I have, and maybe summer is a time to lean more into sewing and fall back on other hobbies that I had kind of fell to the wayside because of my knitting hyperfocus for the last few years. That, and when we went to the beach, we did a lot of shelling. Like I talked about, I was so excited. It was great shelling. We had a great time. I loved using those produce bags that I made for the purposes of collecting seashells, and they were great for it. And then I actually ended up taking a bunch of pictures at the beach, for my Ravelry project page, and it was really fun to do a little photo shoot with my little project, and it was really great. I had a lot of fun, and I brought back a lot of seashells that I intend to use for some other crafts. We brought back a lot of giant Atlantic cockles, I believe, or maybe they're giant Florida cockles. I'm not great at remembering the seashell names yet. Giant cockle shells that I'm hoping to turn into candles to gift for Christmas. We have a lot of them, so I'm thinking like friends and family and coworkers. I want to make candles out of those. My hiccup with that is that I'm trying to find an either secondhand or sustainable place to buy the soy wax to do that. And that might take some time, but it's okay. It's not Christmas yet. It's April. So I will work on that throughout the year and hopefully be able to work on that this fall. And then I also got a lot of really, really teeny tiny seashells, and I think it would be fun to try to turn them into like stitch markers. And that was why I was gathering a lot of little teeny tiny seashells. So we'll see. I want to look more into the process and if there's any sort of like lacquer or something I can put on the outside to kind of protect them from the wear and tear of being stitch holders. But I think I have a Dremel. I think I could drill a little teeny hole, and I have all the jewelry making supplies to turn them into stitch markers. So I have some furniture in the basement that I've been saying I'm going to refinish or fix up for years. Like that kind of stuff, I think, is what I'm going to try to lean into this summer. And of course, also, my primary summer hobby is garage sailing, which I've only done one garage sailing day so far this year, and it was not super successful, but I did find one thing that will be in today's acquisitions segment. So I do have one finished object, technically, and I almost forgot to show it because it's been so long since I finished it. I think I finished it shortly after the last podcast that I forgot I hadn't even talked about it already. And that is this Big Easy pullover, or maybe it was just Big Easy Gansey. Haven't woven in this last end, as you can see. I never blocked the sleeves. I did steam block the body to get a better idea of how the fit would go. I believe I did that before the last podcast even, so I probably already talked about that. Yeah, I kind of bound off on this one and shoved it in the basket, and the finished object has literally been sitting in the project basket in my living room for a month. I'm not super thrilled with the neck on this one. I told myself I was going to do the blocking and everything first before I made any decisions about it, which is why I haven't done anything. But I want to block the sleeves properly, see what the fit is like on the whole thing, and then decide if I want to rip back this neck or not. So this is as it's written in the pattern, and you pick up and do this little 2x2 rib around the hole that you leave for the neck, and then you inside the 2x2 rib, after you bind that off, you pick up this funnel and you do this funnel that has a rolled stockinette edge. It is fine, it does fit, it fits over my head and everything. I just kind of don't like the style of it, and I thought I would, but I think it looks a little incongruous with the rest of the sweater for some reason. So like I said, I don't want to make any decisions until I've blocked it and I can actually see the fit of the whole thing, including the blocked sleeves and everything. But my thought was that I would possibly just unravel the funnel and undo the bind off on this 2x2 and just knit the 2x2 a bunch longer and do a folded over 2x2 collar. I just think that might look a little more proportional to the rest of the sweater, but that's why I want to block the sleeves and check the rest of the fit first, because the issue that I'm having is that I think it looks off with the rest of the fit, so I want to be certain of what the rest of the fit is before I make any changes. But I have plenty of yarn. I have, obviously, if I decided to unravel this, I would have all the yarn in the funnel. This was left over from the last skein I used, and I have another full skein that I never even tapped into, which is a little disappointing because I thought I was making the largest size I could with the quantity I had. I would prefer this to be oversized, and I would have liked to make the next size up to use that extra skein, but I thought I couldn't. So live and learn. I did what I thought was best and I couldn't have done it any differently, but we'll see. I don't know. And I'm not particularly inclined to wear this one right now. I guess I could. It could be kind of a pretty springy thing, but it's just one of those things. I'm just not super motivated right now. I don't know. There's just a lot going on in the world. Not particularly in my life, but in the world, that is distressing and distracting, and I just don't get to this stuff. Now Annie's just like sitting at my feet looking at me. She might. Here we go. You gonna do it? I'm just gonna think about it. All right, well, I'm gonna keep talking about my projects then, because we cannot wait for you all day. Last time, I'm certain I talked about when making my Midland cardigan, how I knew I was going to run out of yarn, so I was knitting through the garter on both sleeves, but putting the sleeves on hold before starting the ribbing, just so I could get through it all, make sure I had enough yarn, and then I was going to do the button band, which is a double knit button band, and possibly the cuffs on both sleeves in a different color. I showed the colors, the other colors remnants I have of the same yarn. Incidentally, one of the ones I showed was Top of the Lamb. That was like a leftover from a project quantity that I bought at the same time as the yarn from my Midland that I made a Christmas gift for my mom and had a lot extra of. I actually ended up selling that like a day later. Somebody on Ravelry messaged me that they were like mostly done making this like really elaborate cabled sweater out of it, and it looked really good in the photo she sent me, but she was out, and I warned her. I was like, I would be really wary of this because I bought it from Polywogs and it might be an off color batch or something that with the texture. Like, I got it at a discount for a reason, but I don't know what the reason was. And she was like, I'm going to take the risk. She was like adamant. So I sold it to her and shipped it off to New Jersey, and she finished her sweater, and that quantity is no longer an option. I don't think it's a big deal. It wasn't my favorite option anyway. I had 2 other colors of this same yarn base left over, and I think they looked nice, but I really didn't want that much contrast. I wanted this to be a neutral cardigan, and I'm just afraid that if I have like a chartreuse contrast border or this bright teal contrast border, I won't choose it as often because I'm just less likely. I wanted a neutral and I wanted it to stay neutral. So I went through my stash extensively. I tried a bunch of different options, and I like what I landed on, but I'm having issues with it. So you can see I've gotten started. I've had a bunch of false starts. I've had a lot of issues with this, but you can see, and I should back up. I had enough to get through the cuffs. I actually made the cuffs longer than they're supposed to be because I was going back and forth and doing like 2 or 3 rows on this one and then 2 or 3 rows on this one and trying to make them even so that I would have enough to finish both and not run out when one was longer than the other. And I actually kept doing that and then said, wait a minute, how long is it supposed to be in the pattern? And I had made them both a little longer than they should have been anyway, which is no big deal. I have long arms, but I had plenty to finish the cuffs. So it's just the button band. I say I had plenty to finish the cuffs, but after I did the cuffs, this is the amount of yarn I had left over. And by the way, 100% my fault. I went back and did the math again, trying to figure out how on earth I calculated it so poorly, and I don't know what I did. I recalculated the yardage that I would need for my size, this size, and it was way off. And there is no world in which the 7 skeins of this that I bought would have been enough yardage to meet the requirements I need. I needed at least 8. And I'm very confused about why I chose to buy 7 skeins, because I could have bought more. They had more, and it's a budget. Like I said, it's a discount seller. I don't know. I don't know. I had Rhinebeck fog, I guess. It's like the overstimulation of that weekend. I chose a neutral. I like the colors. I think that they're the same color family. They're just different tones of the same undertone, which I think is ideal. I wanted it to be neutral. The issue that I'm having is that I had this in stash, and it is just, I had these 2 skeins of, I don't remember what it's called. Shoot, I think I left the ball bands over there. Let me... I'm unprepared. It's BC Garn BioBalance. And it is is it 50-50? It is a cotton wool blend. 55% wool and 45% Pima cotton. And I bought it thinking it would make a nice summer thing. And I bought it for some reason not realizing it was 50-gram hanks. So I only really got 100 grams of it, and I thought I got 200, and then I couldn't really make anything out of it. So since I only have 100 grams, I thought I would try to use it for this. I'm holding it double, as you can see, because it's a fingering weight. This pattern is written at a DK weight gauge, but I have twice now made it with a worsted weight. I love the texture and the weight and everything about the finished fabric. It was difficult on the hands. Not as difficult as the button band. This is so much worse. Because of the cotton content in this yarn, I have to hold it really, really, really tight to get it tidy. And there are still bits where it's a bit untidy. I'm gonna try to hold it up. See if you can see. I don't know where the top of I don't have a monitor to see what I'm filming. So I'm just holding it up at the wrong side of the camera and hoping you can see. So it's still a little wibbly. It's really hard. It's really hard on my hands. I can basically knit a couple inches a day before I get tired of it and my hands start to hurt. So it's going to take me a long time. I mean, it goes all the way around. So I've picked up the stitches all the way around for you to see here. And I've made it like that far. I've also used this extra large needle as a stopper on the other end because I didn't have any stoppers for this interchangeable cord. And I figured that would work just fine. And it does. They don't fall off because it's too big. I'm not lukewarm on the finished object. I think I like the sweater and I think I will wear the sweater and it's going to be very comfy, but I'm very lukewarm on the process and it's been a struggle. And I have been picking away at it, working at it for maybe an hour or so every day to try to work through that button band, but I have to pull the yarn so tight to get it to the stitches to look even. Basically with that cotton content, it has no less memory than regular wool. And I don't regret the choice because I like the color choice and I think it's a good use of the quantity that I have, but also it's hard and unmotivating. All right, so I'll talk about this one next because it's like very, very nearly a finished object. Well, caveat, I do still have my Lunenburg pullover, but I haven't made any progress on it, so I didn't bring it up to show. This one is so nearly a finished object. I am in fact partway through the bind off, but just got bored and stopped doing it. So you might remember this project. It's so difficult to see on these needles like this. Let me slide my 2 bind off stitches back over here so I can at least hold it this way. This is just a little kerchief scarf. It's fingering weight, and I just decided to make it at Christmas time. I was going to gift it to a friend for Christmas. You can probably tell it took longer than that and it wasn't ready for Christmas. So I mean, I had other gifts for this friend, so I just left it off, set it aside. I had this 150-gram ball of Knit and Note merino. This was a little freebie that was included in the grab bag at the Indie Untangled Rhinebeck event several years ago. I didn't go to Indie Untangled last year, so I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Just this 150-gram ball. It's really nice yarn. It's super soft. It's super tidy. I don't know. I really like it. I think it's really pretty. I don't know if I'll keep this myself or if I will end up gifting it to somebody. But this was just a little free pattern that I don't remember what it's called. You've seen it by now on the screen. And I've bound off about this much on the side. I have not remembered to talk about this project since Vlogmas, but I have slowly been working on it. I have literally just left this project bag at my office for a very long time, and this is what I've worked on as my sort of desk knitting on a lunch break or on a meeting or whatever. Recently, when I got towards the end and I thought I was going to get to the bind off, I brought it home and switched out for a different project to be my work project. I think this will benefit a lot from a blocking. I think I will probably even iron it so that it's extra crisp because some of the edges are uneven. And the reason for that is you do increases on both sides. I mean, it's a very standard triangular construction, right? So you do an increase on each end and then one on either side of the center column there. And the increases that you do on the 2 sides are knit front and back. And it took me a while to realize, like, this side looks so tidy and this side looks so horribly untidy. And it's because on this side, which is the beginning of the row, the knit back portion is the second stitch. So it's inside from the edge. And on this side, the back portion is also the second stitch. I guess I didn't say that in the best way, but it's on the outside. So on this side, the increase is tucked inside that first stitch, and on this side, it's just the edge. So it's making this sort of like knobby, wibbly edge that I'm hoping ironing will kind of disguise how uneven it is. I don't like that element of the pattern. If you were to make this free pattern, everything else about it is fine. I would change the style of increase on the 2 sides and do like a knit one, make one left, and then on the other end, make one right, knit one, to avoid this uneven edge because it doesn't look good. But it was a fingering weight thing that took me like 5 months, and I'm not gonna like redo anything. So that's that. Very simple thing. Like I said, it's quite inconsequential. I actually had to tink back a full row because I thought I could get one more row in before I had to bind off, and then I didn't have enough left for the bind off. So I had to tink back the whole row to reclaim the yarn to be able to do the bind off on the wrong side row. All right, I have one more project that I started before my trip, and I was really excited about this. I am excited about this. I was loving working on this for a while, and I still do like working on it, but it's just a very slow going one, and the progress is so slow. It's hard to keep track. Not keep track, I guess. It's not hyper motivating. What I need right now is a project, at least one, that has visible, quantifiable progress. So I feel like I'm making progress. I think the issue that I'm having with my knitting is that I have just a bunch of projects at the moment that feel very, very, very slow and like I'm not really progressing on them. And I don't love the ramifications that are having for my mental health. We talked a lot about this one after Rhinebeck last year because these are also yarns that I bought at Rhinebeck. And I decided to make this sweater out of them, I think before or during Vlogmas. Now I found this single, very large hank of Legacy lace at the Pollywogs booth, that same discount booth. And it is a very large yardage for a single hank. I believe it was like 1,400 yards, and it's a lace weight yarn and this like very pretty kind of dark toothpaste like mint, and I really liked it. This was at New York Sheep and Wool, so I think I found this on the Saturday, and I walked around and spent a while trying to find something fluffy to hold with it for a sweater, and I did specifically want it to be a suri because I've never worked with a suri as opposed to a mohair, and I thought that would be fun. So I ended up finding at Dachshund Daddy yarn, and I don't think it shows up as well in the cake, so I'm hoping that I have some footage from Rhinebeck that I can plug in here that you can see. But I bought 3 hanks of this suri from Dachshund Daddy because it's gray, but it has this very minty green hand dyed into it, but it's like a super subtle tonal, and I just thought it matched this so well. And you know what? I didn't realize how well it matched. Once I started knitting, I really, really love it more than I thought I would. I decided to make the Ballard Pullover by Sari Nordland last fall or winter. I believe this pattern was gifted to me by a viewer, so thank you so much for contributing to the channel. That is one simple way that you can support the channel. If you would like, I have a Ravelry wish list of projects that I would like to make but haven't purchased the pattern for yet, and especially sometimes if you want to check my Ravelry queue for things that I'm thinking of making sooner, I haven't always purchased the patterns that I need for those yet. It's very, very slow going. What size needles are these? This is my Addy Click-It interchangeables, which, like I've said, have sort of become a favorite, but also the sizes wear off on them and I have no idea. I have no idea what size needles these are. I think they're the smallest ones that come with the set, which is either 3.25 or 3.5. I have it in the Ravelry page. I usually remember to include the needle size I'm using in the Ravelry project page. So it's a super, super simple cable pattern. I think it looks really classy and really, really nice in the project photos. I love the just columns of stockinette in between the columns of the cables. And there's not a lot of cables to keep track of. Obviously there's a lot of cable columns, but they all have the cable row on the same row. There's not a lot to keep track of. It's an awful lot of effectively just unusual ribbing because they're not the same widths, but then with a cable row in between. And I have a hard time. I'm pretty good at reading my knitting in general, but I do have a hard time with cables, particularly figuring out how many rows ago was the cable row. I struggle with that. So I usually put a movable stitch marker on the cable row, which it looks like I did a cable row and then set it aside, which props to me because I think normally I'm inclined to like let my future me deal with the cables, but I actually did them before I shoved it in my bag. So I usually have like a light bulb stitch marker on the cable row so I can count from the stitch that the marker's in because that's so much easier. So I have just joined under the sleeves. I think I was like maybe an inch there since joining under the sleeves. It's gonna bloom a lot, I think, with blocking because of these cables and because of the texture of it. So this yarn this yarn. This pattern is written for a fingering with a fluff, fingering with mohair. I think the lace weight with the Surrey fills in just fine, is an incredible fabric. I think it's going to be perfect. I love it. It just moves so slowly. So now that I'm holding it again, I'm like, no, actually I kind of want to work on this afternoon, which I will. But I haven't worked on it since before my vacation. It's not super conducive to warm weather. I think once it gets really hot, I might not enjoy having the fluff and so much warmth. But right now, it's still pretty cool this spring, and I think I'll get where I can. I don't intend to wear it until fall anyway. So yeah, that's my Ballard pullover. Now I have two projects. I have them both shoved in this bag. Annie is once again considering joining us. Yeah, there she is. So I have two projects in this bag, both of which were my vacation cast-ons. Like I said, this was a shorter trip. It was less, bless you, it was less than a week. But I still wanted to have two projects. I wanted to have a really small whip that I could bring with me, carry in my backpack. We did visit the theme parks. So this trip was split like half beach, half Universal, which is what we love to do. And honestly, I wish I could do that with all of my time forever. But this one was just like 3 days beach, 3 days Universal. And when we're at Universal, I like to have a small project with me so I can work on it if we end up waiting in a longer line, which we did a couple times. And I was glad to have this one, but it's got to be really quite small to fit in the backpack that I bring with me to the parks. Because the backpack is not a full-size backpack because of the size of the ride lockers and things. There's a lot of logistics that go into being a good theme park guest and being efficient. And part of that is having a mini backpack that I use to fit in the ride lockers. And that means I need a mini project to fit in my mini backpack. So we have this, look at how tiny this little tote bag is. I do not know where this came from. I tried like searching the name that's on here and it's just like a word. Like I couldn't find a company associated with this word that's maybe Mandarin. It's some sort of Chinese. I don't know which. I have no idea where it came from. It must have just come from some like Amazon product at some point in the past, but it's like perfect for little teeny projects. I just think it's so cute. So I had two little skeins of this Copenhagen, is that what it's called? Copenhagen Fibers Merino Light. And you might also recognize these from Rhinebeck last year. That's the theme, is that apparently I'm only using yarns from Rhinebeck last year today. And it is considered a sport weight, but you'll see the pattern I chose is pretty adjustable. So I did choose a fingering weight pattern and it's 100% wool. It's pretty nice. I have noticed that there are some sort of like extra, not even slubs, but do you know when there's sort of like an extra tuft of a different fiber that doesn't belong to this yarn that just kind of transferred on the equipment when it was being spun? And you can kind of like pull it out. I have noticed a bunch of little like stowaway slubs that don't belong that I have to remove because they really stick out in the knitting. But anyway, I got two skeins of this as a prize at the Hobie booth at a Woolen Affair last Rhinebeck. So since I just had this, I think they're 50 gram skeins. Yeah, so I just had 100 grams of this. So I decided to make a little scarf, and it's actually going to be bigger than I realized because this yarn is going farther than I expected it to. So this is a free pattern for a little shawlette called Mara. It's very similar to, well, I thought the Sophie scarf. I'm actually thinking now the Sophie shawl because it's bigger than I expected it to be. It's the same shaping and sort of style as the Sophie shawl, where it's the I-cord on either side and you're just gradually increasing slowly on one side until you get through half of your yarn and then you gradually decrease back down. Except instead of just standard garter in the middle, it's got an interesting stitch pattern. It is not a complex stitch pattern, but for some reason I'm having a hard time memorizing it. So I have a couple thoughts about this. First of all, this is how much scarf I have. And I've only used maybe 25, maybe 30 grams of the first skein. So it's going to be a lot bigger than I thought. I, in my head, imagined the halfway point being not long after this, and that it would be a sort of little kerchief. And this is going to grow a bit with blocking. I think it's going to be quite a bit bigger. It's going to be more of a shawl, like the Sophie shawl, like I said. Speaking of, I don't want to throw shade. I don't want to discourage anybody from buying a pattern from a pattern designer. However, this is a free pattern with the same construction with a more complicated stitch pattern, and it would not be difficult to sub out the stitch pattern in this little scarf for garter stitch, and I cannot imagine paying some of the prices that Petite Knit puts on patterns for a pattern this simple. So do with that what you will. I like the detail that's in the Mara instead anyway. I like the little eyelets and the different stripes. I started to touch on that I'm having a difficult time memorizing it because it looks quite simple, but it's, I believe, a 16-row repeat, and it starts, because it's a free pattern, we're just going to go straight into it. There's like a section of stockinette, there's the eyelet row, then there's a little section of stockinette above the eyelet row, and then there's a little section of 1x1 rib, and then there's a little section of garter. And she just bit my sleeve. I have just struggled to remember the distribution of those sections over the 16 rows. I'm finding myself constantly, get that out of your mouth, let go, constantly checking the chart. Because this was my travel project, this was my little mini bag project, I printed the chart. So I just printed the page of the pattern that had the relevant chart on it, extra big, and that was helpful to have to remind myself where I was, because I thought it would be easier to memorize than it is. Why do you keep biting my clothes? That is so weird, little girl. I've had comments in the past, like, just pet her, she'll stop. I have to tell you, she will never stop. I adopted this little cat in 2015, and she has done this pretty consistently since then, and she never stops. She's never satisfied. She's not greedy. She's just slow and compulsive, and she will rub up against you for pets incessantly until the end of time. It doesn't matter how long you pet her for. She will not give you breaks. She doesn't care if you eat, sleep, or use the bathroom. There's no satiating her need for pets. So I'm not neglecting her. I've already petted her for hours today. She'll just never be happy. One more project to talk about. This was my other vacation project, and this one's the one that was a little bit bigger, but it was like my plane project basically, or like we had a rental car for a day to go from the beach to Orlando. So it was my car and trains, planes, and automobiles project. Okay, first of all, let me back up. Just in case you're getting the impression that people on the internet have an easier time than you do with this. I really struggled to pick a pattern. I wanted to use stash. I did not want to buy anything new, and I was having a very difficult time pairing yarn with a pattern that I actually wanted to make for a garment that I actually wanted to wear. I tried a bunch of different things. I swatched for a bunch of different things, and I just kept coming up short and not liking anything, and my vacation was approaching, and I was starting to feel pretty stressed about it, and I didn't like that. And I ended up settling on this one with a caveat because I don't love everything about it, and we'll talk about that. I had seen I don't remember which one, so I'm sorry I cannot provide more context, but I had seen a styling video that Beep World released in recent months where she had a vest that I thought was really cool, a sort of sweater vest, but it had extra deep armholes and was like a little longer than standard, and I think she styled it over a dress or something. I thought it looked really cool. I actually kind of remember her in the video saying she didn't really like it and wouldn't wear it that way, but she was doing it as an example, but I thought it looked really cool, and I was thinking I would really like a sweater vest with really deep armholes like that sort of style. I did not find a pattern on Ravelry for anything quite like that. There was a couple Petite Knit options that had deep armholes, but they weren't traditional sweater vests. They had some sort of like button or tie closure. They were more of like, what do you call that? Like a slipover that opens up on the sides. It's not really what I wanted. I looked at a lot of options and I decided I was just gonna have to modify something. And then looking at the options of things that I could modify, I decided not to buy something new and to just make modifications to a pattern that I already owned. A few years ago, I was a test knitter for the Semper Slipover V-neck version for the Knit Pearl Girl. And I only have the V-knit version in my collection because that's the one I made for her, but part of that test knit was that she gave us the finished patterns for both the V-neck and the crew neck at the end. And I should say that a portion of this is that I wanted it to have a crew neck, and that was one of the reasons I wasn't finding the exact vest I wanted on Ravelry, because I wanted a crew neck with deep armholes that was a little longer, like nothing quite checked all the boxes. So I have a pattern for a crew neck slipover that I like, that I've made before, and I decided it would be relatively easy to just modify it so that the armholes are extra deep. And then after that, it's not hard to modify it length because it's a top-down slipover. So that's what I decided to do. I didn't have any perfect yarn in stash. It calls for a DK. I'm imagining this as more of a summer garment that I would wear over a t-shirt or something. And for that reason, I didn't want to hold fluff with anything. I could have made stuff from stash work if I'm holding it with a mohair. I don't want to use a mohair for something that I'm anticipating I will wear in warmer months. I didn't like the color of anything else I had. And that's where the caveat comes in. I decided to make it using this Hobie Black Friday wool that I bought. I had a 10-pack of this. It is a fingering weight, I think. Oh, it calls itself a DK. It's so not. It's so much lighter than that, in my opinion. Maybe it blooms and fills in like a DK. So the pattern is written for a DK. I would not make it with a single strand of this. It would be so floppy. I'm holding double this Black Friday wool. I don't like the color. I don't think I will wear a vest this color. I started it telling myself, maybe we'll dye the finished garment. We'll see what it comes out like. Maybe it won't be so bad and we'll like it. Or maybe I'll go buy a bottle of Rit dye and I will dye it a color that I like. At that point in time, with my vacation approaching, with not wanting to spend anything on materials to have a vacation project ready, with not having any of my active projects being suitable to take on vacation, and there was just that film of panic overlaying the whole thing, what I really needed in that moment was just to have something to work on and to have the permission to say, okay, I know I'm not going to like the color, but I'll deal with that later. And that's what I did. So I've been working on this slipover. I got a lot farther since vacation. There are a lot of ends sticking off this. I'm working it on the same needles. I never put the back panel on hold. I didn't have a barber cord to put it on hold while I was on my trip. I only had the little stitch holders and they weren't enough. So I've just been working it all on the same needles the whole time, which is a little cumbersome, but it's doable. I try to get the seam up at the shoulder where it would be so you can see. So I added, I believe, 3 inches to the depth of the armholes because it's a pretty standard normal arm size on the vest as written, and I wanted them to be super deep. Let's get the seam at the top where we think it should be. The back panel armhole is the length that it will be. It'll be that much longer before I'm done. So it'll be a super deep armhole. That's the goal. I think I don't remember exactly what size I made. I believe I decided to make a size larger than I made last time because the last one, while it's not neutral ease, it's barely positive ease, and I wanted more. I just wanted it to be bigger. Now, holding the yarn double, it's a little dense, but I think it'll block out really well. It's not super dense. It's not hard on my hands at all to work on. And I think it's going to block really nicely and add a lot of drape once it's blocked. So it's very questionable to me that that yarn is labeled as a DK. Sorry, it's so hard to see. My idea would be probably a dark brown if I was to dye it at the end. I don't know. Maybe when I get to the end, I won't hate the color so much. Right now, kind of do. I don't really know what I would wear it over with this color. It doesn't really fit into my wardrobe. But like I said, I've given myself permission to not worry about that. And that will be a problem I'll deal with at a later date. It's not a big deal. It's not crucial. I just need to relax a little. Okay, let's do some acquisitions because I've got some thrifted ones. I know I am gonna shift back to doing like thrift hauls in the summertime, but since I haven't started yet, I'm going to a rummage sale next week for the first time. So maybe that, like, I'm just expecting to find something good there. I did go to the sale last year and get some yarn and fabric and stuff. So I'm thinking I'll start saving for those standalone videos next time, but for now I'll show you the couple of yarn items that I found since last time. Oops, I left my thing out. I didn't mention my little flexi flip is what I'm using to knit the button band on the Midland, because I have that big oversized needle on the other end as a stopper. I find it really extra strenuous to try to maneuver all of the weight that's on this cable to use the needles that are on it. So I don't. I just use the one on the one end where I'm actually working, and I use this little flexi flip as the other one, and it's very easy. Oh, I do want to show this because I think it's so fun, and it's a sort of crafty thing. It's not a knitty thing, but it's a crafty thing. Anyway, I gotta get up. Bonk. So I found, ooh, I'm gonna fall over. I found this at a thrift store. Don't you dare take my seat. Ugh. What, are you gonna host now? All you do is bite the yarn. Okay, I found this at a thrift store. It was $3.99. I think the sticker's still on there. And it's a wallpaper sample book. I don't know how in frame it is. I bought this because I thought it's really cool. There are a lot of, I don't even know how I will begin to show this to you. Maybe like this. So it's actual sheets of the wallpaper, samples from this company in the different colorways they have. I think it's so cool. And it's the actual super high quality wallpapers. Like insane. It's so neat. Would I be able to afford wallpapering a room in any of these? Absolutely not. But I'm going to cut pages out of this book and either frame them as artwork or use some of the simpler ones as like a mat behind another piece. Like, how freaking cute are these? Like, they're so interesting. I love them. So pretty. And for $4 to have a whole bunch of art pieces that I can adapt and add around my home when I have appropriate frames. Oh, love it. I love it. So I just thought it was such a cute, crafty idea. And like, this is the sort of one that I would maybe not frame on its own, but I would use as a mat with like a photo in the middle. Incredible. I love it. And again, $4, a steal. It's really heavy. It was painful to carry it around the thrift store, but it was very worth it. I love these so much. I don't think I've even seen every page. Oh my God, I love that. Like this, I would just frame on its own. So good. Oh, like it's so springy and perfect. This, and I mean, some of them have multiple sheets of the same for demonstration purposes. Oh, like somebody already cut that one out. Man, I would have loved to do a triptych of those. I guess I could do a diptych. Oh, gorgeous. I'm losing my lamp there. I am very infatuated with some of these prints. This one's really nice. Oh, yeah. So incredible. I love it. I love it terribly. Just a really cool sort of one-of-a-kind find that I'm looking forward to using in my home. As far as fiber items I've thrifted. So first of all, a while ago I was at a thrift store and I found this baggie amongst other yarns. Most of the yarn that I see at the thrift store is acrylic or acrylic blends. It's almost always small quantities that are not particularly usable. This is it's a frog project. There's a bunch of little discrete balls, hand wound. It's something frog, but I recognized it immediately because I have a skein of this and it wasn't cheap. And I bought it thinking I would crochet like a hanging plant holder or something out of it. But I remember it being like, I'm not certain, maybe $20, maybe more for the single ball of this. I don't have the ball band. It is not listed in my Ravelry. I don't know what it is, but it's this sort of like variegated tape yarn. Yeah, I don't know, but it's the same colorway as the one I have. And I was like, that is extremely fortuitous. I'm so glad about that. This was also $3.99. I think this is 2 balls worth. So now I have 3 of that. I don't know what I'll do with it, but it's pretty neat and good fortune to find the colorway that I already had. This one is unusual and maybe not something I would normally gravitate to, but it was a really good deal because I got it at a garage sale last week. This person had a bunch of knitting stuff out. She was mostly only selling like needles, which I don't need. She had some pattern books that I wasn't interested in. And again, a lot of like acrylic or small quantities that I'm not really interested in acquiring. But she had this bag, which had 4 cones of this Ito yarn, which is called, it's like, I don't know what the base is called. It just says, oh, it's washi, Ito washi, which is 54% paper, 46% viscose, and it is an extremely fine strand, like smaller than a lace. I guess that's cobweb. And then it also had 2 cones of this one, also from Ito. I don't know. I don't think it's the same base. Oh, this wrapped around it is different. Oh, this might be both of them held double. The project, she told me it's a kit for a shawl. You're supposed to hold them double. So it looks like this wrapped around is the strands held double that were frogged and just wrapped around 2 cones held together. So they're super, super fine. Even held together, they're basically a lace weight. And she gave me the pattern too that came with the kit. It is a pattern from Ito for the Let poncho. I don't know if that's what I'll make with it. I don't know what else I could possibly make with it. Who knows? It was a cool deal. I know that these are not cheap products. It's something I wouldn't normally have the opportunity to try. This was $8. Not the cheapest, but also a pretty good bargain for what it is. And maybe that's the sort of something different I will need this summer is a lace weight poncho. Today, as I'm filming this, is local yarn store day. I did not visit my local yarn store day today, but I did last night because just like last year, my local yarn store has like a VIP preview night for their local yarn store day sales after the store is closed on Friday night. I believe what makes me a VIP is that historically I have spent too much money at their store. And that puts me on the list in their rewards program. I'm pretty sure they just pull up the list of high rollers and invite us to spend more money at a special private event, which works. So I went last night. I did try to set a budget, which I didn't stick to, but I sort of stuck to, and we'll discuss. I had 2 projects in mind. Like I talked a lot about last time, earlier in this video as well. I'm trying to be very, very conscious of only making warm weather knits that I will actually wear. And there are 2 projects that have stuck out to me as something that I would like to make this summer. I don't have anything in stash that will work for them. I have spent a long time going through my stash, trying to figure out if this quantity will work or if this quantity will work. I don't have anything that will work for these 2. They're both sport weight projects, which is yarn that I tend to have less of. I do have cones that might meet a sport weight gauge, but they're made of materials that I think I might not like to have. I don't know. I'm on the fence. I was like, I haven't spent virtually anything on yarn except for thrift store finds since last year, and I need some motivation because I've been really struggling in my motivation. I think we also noticed a trend, I certainly did during the filming of this podcast today, that I'm almost exclusively working with yarns that I acquired at Rhinebeck last year, which means that despite the fact that I have this giant stash, I'm mostly working with new stuff. And the projects that are on the top of my mind that I'm keen to cast on are also things that I bought at Rhinebeck. So I think, first of all, the moth scare earlier this year makes me want to pare down my stash just because of the exhaustive amount of work it was to try to maintain my stash when there was a scary event like that. And I would like to have less in the future just for that reason. I don't know, I made that stash video last year where I said I love having my large stash and being able to shop my stash, and I think it's great how it is. And I still believe all of those things, but the moth scare did make me rethink the practicality of being a steward to this much yarn. I would like to work through what I have. I have projects picked out for a bunch of this stuff, but the problem is a lot of the projects I have picked out are for larger weights. They're for Erin, they're for bulky, and I don't feel like working on that this season. And Like I said, my knitting mojo has been waning. I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of not enjoying the projects that I'm working on. But there are these two that I've been considering and thinking about a lot. And one of them is the freestyle shirt. I think it's Suzanne Mueller wrote that one, which I've made a couple of her patterns before and I quite like them. I just like the fit of it. I just like the fit of this like oversized t-shirt looking garment. The t-shirts that I have knit myself, specifically the fingering weight t-shirts, I've done 2 moonset tees in the past, are the ones that I wear the most of the summer garments that I've knit myself. There's a handful of tank tops that I actually wear, but the t-shirts are the ones that I wear most often. I like the idea of doing the freestyle shirt. It is a large quantity of sport weight yarn. Like if I wanted to make the oversized fit that I want to get for that, it's like over 1,600 yards. And when I was looking at the yarn store last night, that's like kind of cost prohibitive for me right now. It would have been $130-ish to get any of the yarns that I actually liked for that. There was a couple more budget friendly yarns, but I didn't really like the colors for a summer t-shirt or the texture of the wool for a summer t-shirt. So I'm not trying to force it. I didn't pull the trigger and I didn't get anything for that. I might try to make that with one of the thrifted cone yarns I have at some point. We'll see what happens. Or I might pivot and make a similar pattern that's not exactly that one out of a fingering weight, even though I really want that one. We'll see. But the other pattern that I went in thinking about is the Darjeeling blouse. And while the sample photos show it very cropped, it does have different instructions for different lengths, and I think I would make the either medium or long length, because another trend I've noticed is that of all the finished objects that I have, I tend not to wear the cropped ones as much. They don't always look how I anticipated they would look. Sometimes I just have body image issues and I don't want to wear them. And also the trend I think is shifting away from super cropped things into more oversized baggy things. And that's where my preferences have shifted to. So while I like the Darjeeling blouse and I like the little lace and the fit of it, I think I would want it to be a little longer. So those are the 2 patterns that I went into the yarn store thinking I might buy a sport weight quantity for. And I ended up picking one for the Darjeeling blouse. I chose Remix Light. I've used this twice before for 2 different projects and I really, really like this yarn. They had a new version, Remix DK, I think. Even though this one is considered a DK, it's not. I mean, it kind of blocks out and blooms and fills in like a DK, but I think it will work perfectly well in this sport weight pattern because it's really fine for a DK. And this color was just calling to me when I think none of the other yarn bases had a color that really spoke to me, especially for this sort of girly lacy blouse in the first place. I just think this will work really well and it's very springy and I felt a little inspired. This has 432 yards. See, it's weird, right? It calls itself a DK, but it has fingering weight yardage to 100 grams. That averages out to a sport in my head. I bought 3 skeins of this to make the Darjeeling blouse. This is a weird blend. It's really, really, really freaking soft and I really like it for that reason. It's a base that I really like. I know I've really liked using it in the past, so it's not a gamble there. It's a color that I like for this project, so I just did it. These are $17.50 a piece. So I think I have my receipt in here. The quantity for the Darjeeling blouse was $52.50. Kind of a lot for a t-shirt, but it's my hobby. I can do what I want. And then that's how I stayed on budget. I went to the yarn store thinking I will buy a sport weight quantity for one of these 2 patterns that will be under $65, which is why the freestyle shirt was not an option because every option for those was well above $65. This one fit the budget. Very cool. It was not one of the local yarn store day sale items, but it doesn't matter. But then in one of the sale bins, I did notice this base, which I think this was more of a clearance sale. They had not a lot. There was a couple assorted bases in this bin that just said 20% off. But this one caught my eye. It is primarily synthetic, which I've been trying to steer away from. The Sirdar, what's it called? Soft down base. It's a very fuzzy, sort of brushed DK weight base in this super, super saturated, like pea green chartreuse. I just loved the color so much. I loved the color. At first I was like, I'm not gonna buy that because it's plastic. And then it kept catching my eye, and the more I thought about it, I don't love the idea of wearing synthetic clothes anymore. I've been trying not to thrift synthetics for my regular clothes because I understand the microplastics involved, and washing them creates more microplastics and it's unhealthy. But to be honest, for my hand knits, I don't wash them in the washing machine. I don't, this won't do that. Obviously there are still microplastics involved. I just know washing them creates an inordinate amount. I just decided to do it. It's a budget yarn anyway. It was on sale. It was affordable for me to buy a quantity to make a cardigan out of this. And in a period of my life when I've been really struggling to be motivated with my knitting and I've been sort of listless about my knitting, I found this super inspiring, and I came home and started searching patterns, and I'm immediately trying to figure out what to do with this because I want to cast on right away. And that's a good thing. So I figured I could get away with 4 skeins of this for a cardigan. And I was like, but you know what? It's so cheap. I'm going to get 5 and I'm not going to play yarn chicken for once in my life. So I bought 5 skeins of this for $36. And I think that's a steal. And it's, I don't know if I'm going to love this color forever. I don't know if I'm going to have this cardigan forever. But in the moment, I had a stroke of inspiration that I've been missing for a long time, and I'm going to go with it. Laura Penrose is always talking about following the dopamine and how forcing yourself to work on projects that aren't inspiring to you, they often don't come out how you want them to come out anyway. But following the dopamine and working on the things that are making you happy in the moment are always the projects that work out the best. So following my intuition, I bought this gorgeous matcha colored Sirdar, and I'm going to make a cardigan out of it. And I'm probably going to cast it on later today because I just love it. I just love that color right now. I think it's a trendy color, and maybe I'm too influenced by trends, but I think I'm also just a visual person. And when I start seeing more examples of a thing in the world, I start seeing the possibilities more than imagining them in my own head. And that's what's happening for me with that color right now. The local yarn store day sales that were attached to it were that yarn was 20% off, and then part of it was if you spend a certain threshold, you get a cashmere scarf. So it's a really pretty color. I don't know if it's going to show up on here very well. It looks like a sort of bluish gray from a distance, but up close there's a lot of pastel, like purple and pinks and blues that are woven together to make it. They basically had a bin of these different cashmere scarves. They were all the same shape, but they had all these different colors, and you got to choose one if you spent over the threshold. And then because I went to the VIP night, there was a little gift bag included also. So the gift bag had a couple patterns. There was like free with purchase patterns for local yarn store day if you bought a certain yarn base, or if you bought a certain quantity of, I think it was fingering weight yarn. That was part of the VIP bag, is they just gave us all the free patterns, the codes to download them on Ravelry, which was cool. I added them to my Ravelry library last night. It had a coupon for their store later in the month, or I believe next month, and it had a microwavable neck wrap, which is a really cute idea for any knitter, I think. I, who have a long history of neck and shoulder problems, loved that item. I mean, I already have a microwavable one, but this one is smaller and more convenient and has much less microwave time than the one I already have. So I tested it out last night and I did really like it. So that was a nice little bonus. And it also included these. So it's ChiaoGoo interchangeables. So there is a cord, a 22-inch cord that works with the small ChiaoGoo connections, which I like. It goes with these needle tips that they gave me, but another thing I immediately thought of is that this will work with one of my sets of ChiaoGoo shorties. And the shorties sets are meant to be short, as you might imagine, and only come with really short cables, even though some of the tips are long enough that I could use them for larger projects. So this is a really nice thing to have because I can use this. I say it works with one of my sets. The ChiaoGoo needles have, I think, three different size of threaded joins. So 3 different like diameters of the base of the needle that threads into the cable. And the 2 sets that I have of shorties have different bases. So this works with one of them, which is the larger diameter needles that I have. So that's really handy to me. That's a nice thing. And then the tips that they gave me, I am skeptical about. So they do go with the cord, so I could use them with this cord, but they are the quads line, which they don't have a cylindrical needle. They have the sort of rounded square. So they're not like sharp, like square, but they're square. They have 4 sides. And I'm really uncertain how I will feel about these. Maybe it's different when they're in a brushed metal. But I did have a set years ago of Knit Picks interchangeable needles that were the like 4 sides. They were wooden, but they weren't called quads. That's a brand name. I don't remember what they were called, but they were square. And I really, really disliked the sensory experience of knitting with them. When the corners scraped on the other needle, it bugged me terribly. And I forced myself to try to use them for a long time. And then eventually I just realized I really hate these. I should just sell them and buy a set of needles that I like. And that's what I did. So I'm really uncertain how I will feel about these. I will give them a fair shot and test them with the cord. But if I have the same sensory reaction, I will probably just give them to a friend because I don't like the memory of those wooden ones that did that. I hated it. I hated the sensory experience. But either way, the cable is useful to me. So that's really nice. So yeah, a nice little evening, a nice reason to go visit the yarn store, and a little glimmer of inspiration that I will hopefully be able to start a new project. And I don't think I said, I picked a new project for the Serdar last night. I picked I don't remember what it's called, waffle something cardigan. I'll just put it up so you can see. But yeah, I'm really keen, and I'm probably going to swatch for that in a little while because I just think that's what I need right now. I need that color. I need a cardigan in that color. For some reason, that's what's going to fix me this week. So thank you so much for joining me. That was a lot. I hope I got through it all relatively quickly. I can't see how long the video's been running. Oh my God, what if my microphone died? I didn't. Oh. Thanks for joining us for the podcast today. And we did have some entries last time for the end of the video club, which I'm pleased to say. So if you're new here and you're still here, this is the end of the video club. Congrats, you're a member. What we do is just have a little treat at the end of every video, every podcast video, I should say, where everybody that sticks around to the end and doesn't like dip out before the outro and the final thoughts gets to share in projects. So we get to see everybody else's projects and what they're working on. These are just submitted to me, and you can do so too if you want by either sending me an Instagram message. Somebody last time sent me a Ravelry message, so you can do that too. A Ravelry message, an Instagram direct message, or an email. And yeah, just send me a picture of your project. Like, it's always welcome if your pet is in the project too, but I happily welcome pet-free project photos because I just love to see what everybody's working on. And it's really fun to get to experience that too, because like I've said many times, while I love sharing my projects with you guys and I love seeing your comments on them, it adds a lot more to the conversation for me to be able to see your side too. So please send me your project photos if you're interested to partake in End of the Video Club next time. Thanks to everybody that sent them in this time. I appreciate your participation as always. And yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we all made it to the end. She's still driving me crazy. She's licking my hand. This cat. Thanks, guys. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye. Yeah. So, what are you doing, Annie? Let me try to get stop biting the yarn. You are going to get kicked out of the podcast. You can't bite the yarn. This is a yarn podcast. So you can kind of see here. Stop biting the yarn, Annie, but Annie. You are making me so upset. You're in such a mood. Okay. Okay. Nope. You are expelled. And the front panel is still increasing. Oh my God, she's grabbing on. She's trying to come back up. Do not bite plastic. What are you trying to do? You're such a ruffian. So disruptive.